Welcome to the Atomic Real Estate Show, Philadelphia's #1 real estate podcast and a Direct Subs production. Real estate investing is not rocket science, and on our show, we'll delve into best practices with a focus on the small things that add up over time. Please enjoy the authentic, informative, and actionable show with our host, Paul Jagelski.
Hello and welcome to the Atomic Real Estate Show, a podcast dedicated to exploring the world of real estate investing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started in the industry, this show is for you. Join us as we dive into the latest trends and insights into the Philadelphia real estate market and hear from expert guests who share their knowledge and expertise with investing in this dynamic city. This show is brought to you by Direct Subs. Please check them out at directsubs.com, focusing on building connections for investors and contractors throughout the greater Philadelphia area. The Atomic Real Estate Show is your go-to resource for all things real estate in Philadelphia. I am Paul Jagelski, your host. Now sit back, relax, and let's explore the atomic world of real estate together with our guest, Samantha Miller. Hi, Samantha.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Oh, I can't complain. Thank you for joining us. And you are the managing partner at Select Commercial Advisors. So please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks again for having me. So Select Commercial Advisors is a Philadelphia-based commercial brokerage that specializes in transacting land and development projects, specifically in the multifamily and mixed-use asset class within the Philadelphia market and some surrounding suburbs. So we're pretty locally based and pretty focused on the niche of multifamily development, mixed-use projects, and that's pretty much us in a nutshell.
So how did you fall into this?
I started my career in a completely different industry in clinical research, and just out of college, got a job that was sensible, made sense, was safe, and did that for years, 9 to 5 W-2 in a completely unrelated field. And, I have no regrets. We all start one place and end up somewhere else. And, I ended up in real estate, not what I was expecting necessarily, but I made the switch into real estate maybe 5 years ago now because I was interested in learning how to build wealth just personally for myself and, have other ways of generating income, saving, generating wealth for myself outside of my 9 to 5. That was really where my focus started. What else can I do besides just saving money from my paycheck? What else is there besides the 401k? There's got to be more that I can do. And also, the 9 to 5 routine, it's not for everybody. I got bored. I always wanted, a new challenge and just felt limited. So for me, I was just seeking something else, and real estate was a good combination of, having that wealth building potential, but also just being something, a field that you can constantly be trying new things and learning. And so kind of checked a lot of boxes for me, and I made the switch and never really looked back.
Well, I like one thing that you put in there really well, the potential of wealth building. Most people just jump to the wealth building. They kind of skip that key word there, the potential.
Yeah.
Because yes, we do make mistakes. And unfortunately, when we make mistakes out of it, they ain't cheap mistakes. So they do cost money. But now, do you have your own properties that you manage and own as well?
Yep, I have a handful of single families and duplexes all in Philadelphia. About 6 properties total, maybe 9 units. So not any, not a substantial portfolio, but I would pretty much buy like one every year or so, just over the last 5 years. I don't manage them myself. I do have a property manager, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's awesome though. So for 5 years now, you've been looking at a little buying here and there. What do you like better, the single family or the duplex, real quick?
I think they're both honestly the same, and I probably don't want to do any more of either of them. My favorite one was the very first property that I ever bought because I never touched it. That was my favorite one. I bought it, I lived in it, I moved out, I rented it out, and I mean, I've had to make repairs as they've come up over the years, but I never renovated it, and I'm just not, even though I work in the development space and all of my clients are contractors, developers, I am not. I focus on analyzing the market, finding deals, negotiating contracts. I'm behind the desk. I'm not there with the hammer and I don't know how to do any of that personally. I
Well,
understand.
there's a lot of us that don't know how to do that part out of it either. So you need that marriage. You can't just swing a hammer every day and consider yourself an investor out of it. You got to be able to have either the full knowledge yourself, or you got to be able to have the partnership where you can do kind of both things out of it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think everybody, the analogy or the sort of explanation I like is that real estate is sort of this three-legged stool of, being either really good at the financing aspect, really good at the construction value add aspect, or really good at like the deal finding and sourcing aspect. And you kind of don't necessarily need to be an expert in all three of those things. You can be good at one and then half decent at the other two, or figure out a solution. But all three of them are certainly involved, and it's very unlikely that one person is going to do all three of them. So it's literally probably going to be two people.
I'm trying to do all three, because right now I am personally trying to do all three.
Can I talk you out of that?
I've learned already very quickly that hiring a contractor is a very smart investment. I have learned hiring somebody to tell me design look is a very smart investment. There's different things. I'm like you. I like the analyzing side of things. I like to scour the market and try and find things. But then I get that analysis by paralysis. Ooh, is this deal really as good as it sounds? It can't be. No way. Gone. Dang it. I missed it. So that's awesome. How has the company been around for 5 years? Longer?
So Select Commercial Advisors officially really just started a little over a year ago, although we are sort of an offshoot of a company called Select Redevelopment, which is a development company, and they still both are existing and are sister companies, but Select Redevelopment's been around for a little over 4 years now. And so it was, I was running acquisitions for Select Redevelopment for the first 3 years, while also brokering deals for other clients of mine. So I was always doing the same business. It's just that we didn't formalize it in a separate entity until about a year ago.
That's so cool. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
It's a nice little step.
Exactly. Yeah, it works well together. I mean, I still, I look for deals constantly for the development company to acquire and build. And so a lot of the efforts that me and my team are putting in to go out there and find new clients, find new deals, works very well for the development side of our company, because they obviously have access to good opportunities, but then we come across way more than, our one company's ever going to buy. So we, find other ways to then share those deals with other clients and help them acquire, help them sell. So it works.
Yeah, see, that's awesome, because a lot of people will do that work, find the one that works for them, and they just push everything off to the side.
Right.
And really streamlined it, kind of like the restaurants where, everything is usable. You just got to find out where to put it. And that's what you ladies and gentlemen did over there. That's awesome. That's a really, really smart business model out of it.
Thanks. So we like it a lot. I think one of the things I like about it the most is that it just helps us stay more informed about the deals that we're doing. I think it's hard to do one deal a year, just come out from, under a rock, do some business and leave. You just have no idea what's going on. You don't know if the deal is good or bad because you have no reference points, because you're not, constantly in the market. And so because our team is constantly talking to sellers, talking to buyers, trading deals, looking at buildings, we can spot what our clients are looking for much more easily, because we're seeing that deal flow come through. And then it works in reverse as well. The development side is constantly feeding us back input from what's happening on construction and development. This is how much it's costing. These are the obstacles we have. This is what works and what doesn't work. And that's all good intel for us to then take back as we're looking for deals. So it's kind of a nice two-way information stream.
Yeah, you're really capitalizing on all of the possible information there. You mentioned costs. How have costs been looking these days? Are they starting to come back down? Are they leveling out? Are they still rising? What we got going on there?
Yeah, based on feedback I'm getting from clients of mine and feedback specifically from our team internally, is that it's not that we're seeing some huge drop in pricing, but it's at least leveling off and perhaps coming back down a little bit, mostly due to there not being enough work out there for subs to go do. And so it's just more competitive now, meaning it's harder for them to find work. So now we can kind of drive pricing down on the labor side of things. Not so much materials, they kind of still are what they are, but at least that's leveled off and has become more predictable. And I think there's some cost savings on the labor side of things.
That's awesome. Any place in Philadelphia that you see as a hot little market right now, everybody's kind of running towards?
Definitely the Northwest has a lot going on. Just the general Northwest corridor. Germantown has a ton going on. Roxborough, Manayunk, maybe East Falls. There's just a ton going on up there. Previously, I would have said maybe like North Square, East Kensington. There's still a lot going on there, but I think it's starting to sort of level off at this point now. I think what's been built and what's in the pipeline is probably, that's solidified. But I don't see as many people acquiring new sites there. It's just tougher to make it pencil right now. The Northwest, I see a little bit more activity.
That's awesome. We could use a little revamp in that Northwest little section over there. It needs some fresh love and blood going through there.
Yeah, it definitely, there's a lot of room there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of room to come in and, add value and renovate or build new. But it's a really good submarket. It has a lot of desirable qualities, just accessibility to amenities, and it's like aesthetically pleasing. I think people undervalue that so much, so that if you walk down a street or a block with trees and nice architecture, even if it's not an area that's got a lot of activity happening yet, like people appreciate that, and that will translate into value when it comes up, versus some other pockets of the city, like we force these buildings to go into, and it just ends up feeling like this very concrete jungle type of vibe, which is fine. But, I think, again, people just underestimate the value of having like ambiance and a little bit of aesthetically
greenery. Yes. Like fresh oxygen, please.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with Strawberry Mansion. The location, the in and out of the possibilities of Center City, suburbs, Jersey. I mean, just so that pocket right there, then you go up to like Germantown, Chestnut Hill, that kind of area as well. So, I mean, if we can start really developing that would be awesome to see, because that area could really, as I said, it could use some love right now.
Yeah, that one's tougher. Strawberry Mansion's been I haven't been able to find anything that made sense there, just based on, what's happening in the market rent-wise and value-wise there. I do, again, it has some really nice old brownstones and beautiful pockets, but then there's, at the same time, there's some areas that are hard to rent, and it's I'd like to see, I think it would need some more incentive. There would need to be some more developer incentive to build there, because the numbers just don't quite work. But
I agree. It's funny because it's almost at the point where like Cobb's Creek about 5 years ago, when I was watching that slowly start to turn, and now after 5 years it jumped. I mean, it literally just $30,000 shells are now 110. You're like, wait, what? Over 5 years? And so, I mean, Cobb's Creek got that little bit of love, and they're running with it right now. So that's the great, I like to see when we can start like pushing it into certain little pockets that need it. Downtown's beautiful. Bring some trees in.
Yes.
We can definitely
use some more street trees for sure. But West Philadelphia has a really good like nonprofit tree planting program that I'm forgetting the name of off the top, but I knew the woman who was running it most recently, and I'll think of it. But they will, come out and actually plant trees, upon request.
I just put this on my Instagram story because I just learned about it like 4 days ago, and I'm blanking on it too. Otherwise, I would have it myself.
I'll think of it.
But if you Google like city or Philadelphia city trees, plant Philadelphia city trees or something silly like that, it'll come up, and it's a free service, and you can request it, and they'll come out, they'll site survey it. You can request like different kinds of trees that are local and everything. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to see that blow up, like literally love to see that blow up, because we need it. We really, really do. And I mean, kind of tangent, but they're smart. They're even going after trees that aren't like big root bearing trees that are going to wreck the concrete.
Exactly.
So like they're using some sense here as well. It's not just go out there and throw anything in there. So it's a really cool program. Nice job.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really good.
That's awesome. So you said, are you working with them? Is that how you know them?
No, I met, I got introduced to the group via, someone at a networking event or something years ago. And a couple of clients of mine that have properties in West Philadelphia have requested the trees. I think the way they would work is they would charge developers a certain amount for the trees, and then that money was then used to help fund the other trees that they would plant for like a residential homeowner.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had some clients that I think went through them to purchase some trees for like outside their development projects.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What kind of trends are you seeing in these developments right now?
Yeah. So again, I focus on the multifamily sector. So, I mean, it's a moving target, but I definitely have seen historically a lot of amenities in buildings, like things with amenities changing, just noticing trends. There was a big trend around like dog parks, dog spas, all these types of amenities, and some basic things as well, like just common areas, lobby space, but it's been, I feel like there's been this trend of kind of tacking on and adding more and more luxurious things into buildings where the rents are not necessarily, it's not a luxury building. It's not cheap, but it's not high end either. So they're kind of introducing these more luxurious amenities into these more mid-market buildings. But I'm seeing that kind of get stress tested right now as far as whether they are really worth putting into buildings.
Ooh.
That's what I find interesting, is that like I don't even know if I can comment on which ones are good or bad. I think it's like something to keep an eye on as I'm touring buildings. I'm noticing which amenities they've chosen to include that are potentially not getting used at all, or that are getting used in ways that they weren't anticipating, or that maybe cost more than they were worth to put in, or are they really getting more rent for certain amenities? There's so many things that do make sense, and some things that are still questionable. So let's see how
that's such cool analytics right there. That's amazing. Little things for tenants. I'm sure you're seeing more washers and dryers in units versus at the bottom of buildings or like a laundry floor.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Again, in the mid-market space, it's almost it's funny, like when I do my underwriting and I put together a rent survey for a project and I have to list out what amenities the other buildings have, I would see other people's reports include washer dryer as an amenity, and I was like, I think that's just the same as saying that this place has a sink. Like it's, it's a given. Like I don't think that washer dryer counts as an amenity anymore. I think it's just the bare minimum expectation is to have washer dryer, central air, hardwood floors. Like these things have just become the standard. Security systems, I think things with like smart locks and like keyless entries and things like that, that's a little bit more common now. I wouldn't say that's a given, but I'm definitely seeing more of that. What else? That's like in-unit amenities though, but it's kind of hard to, again, I feel like a lot of that stuff's just a given now, and now it's more so about looking at what else are they offering in the building. And also, like, what does the building look like? And I think people do care about having a building that fits in with the surrounding, that looks kind of unique and a little bit historic, but, fits in with Philadelphia and fits in with the block that it's on. And are the people a little tired of, some of the bland cookie cutter stuff that gets put up?
No, I'm so glad you mentioned a couple different things in there. I mean, one of them being, though, like, you got to fit the block, right? Not just necessarily the city, but the block. We have such historic, like, blocks where this one is different than this one, and then the setups on the third one down is different than that one. So yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's a big one. The ability to have all these insights, and you say they're standard. Now I'm a little landlord and I only have 3 properties, 5 doors. So some of mine are not necessarily standard anymore. So I like this. Feed me. Tell me what's standard, because I got to know what my competition is.
I think it's a good point. I imagine, are your properties mostly 2 to 4 unit or single family, or?
Yeah,
like,
single family and duplexes in Manyoung, Roxborough.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that the standard for properties, like, and same for mine, I have 2 units, single family, stuff like that, and I think that there's a different standard for those than there is for a 20-unit apartment building. And I mean, it's good to kind of see everything and understand what the competition is, but I almost think it's different. I think that the tenant that looks for a single family or a duplex or small like walk up is different than the tenant that looks for a building. And so it's if it's in the same neighborhood, it's again still good to have the reference points, but I do think that you have 2 different renter like target demographics.
I completely agree. It's a topic that goes back and forth in the real estate world. As little landlords with the big guys coming in, are they going to over? Are they not? I sit there and I still say there's still something about having a little property.
Yeah.
Little 2 to 4. People still appreciate that, not having somebody on all 4 sides of them. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, different tenants. That's why there's different niches. That's why there's dog people, there's cat people, there's people that already include all the amenities and all that and rent, and it's one payment. And then there's other ones that's a la carte out of it. Because that's all the tenants are.
Yeah, 100%. And you also always need to have like varying price points in a neighborhood. And it's not a bad thing to be the one that owns the property that, you only need to charge $1,200 a month and all the new construction buildings are charging, $1,400, $1,500 a month. You're the less expensive option, which means that you're probably, your vacancy is probably lower because everyone coming around is like, well, I could save a few $100 a month. And that's very meaningful. That's, a lot. That's a big enough difference to make somebody's mind up about living in, a smaller building than living in a building with a ton of amenities that they don't think they're going to use.
Well, and it's funny that you just said that they're not going to use, because that's what I'm hearing out of it too, is, I do show tenants around here and there every once in a while. And a lot of them still, they look at the big buildings and they're just like, meh, they don't want the big property management. They don't want to be dealing with like as a number and have issues, and so they like it. So yeah, I still think there's a place for us little landlords out there. I like the competition. I'll always consider it good. As you say, different price points, different people, different ways. Are you guys doing any developments right now in the Northwest?
Yep. We've got a couple of sites along Ridge Ave in Roxborough, a property in Germantown, sort of like between Wayne Junction and like Penn Knox neighborhoods in that pocket. And then we're working on a site. We're in diligence on something in the Manayunk area. So we've got a handful of stuff up there. We also did a couple of townhomes in the Mount Airy section a couple years ago. So we've, dabbled in a few of the neighborhoods up there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to figure out which properties you have in the Manayunk Roxborough area.
Yeah. A few of them are actually like almost done. If you drive down Ridge Ave, you'll see at least one of them like framed up. And then the other one I think is, and that's a 15-unit building. Those were pretty cool. The ones on Ridge Ave, they actually had historic components that needed to be preserved in the front.
Yeah.
And it's not something we typically do, but it made sense for where they were. And, obviously it's in the overlay that required it, but the buildings that were there were very, very small and they were sitting on these large lots. So we were able to build a new construction component on the rear of the lot while preserving at least the facade of the original building in the front. And then those were renovated into apartments as well. So it's kind of like they each have two buildings sitting on one site. So they're kind of cool.
That's really cool. I think I now know exactly which property it is. I'm up and down Ridge Ave quite a bit these days.
Nice.
Shout out to Fountain Street Auto. That's my brother-in-law's place over there.
Oh yeah.
Brian.
Yes. Yep.
Brian Mashari. He'll probably kill me if he ever hears this episode, but yeah.
No, he would love it. Shout out. Hey.
But yeah, so I'm always up and down there. That's why I love to see and know what's coming up out of it, because it's so cool to see how they flip that area so quickly.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of neighborhood up and back and forth and so forth, but honestly, my personal opinion, what's going on right now is fine. Let it continue the way it's going. It's going okay. Every neighborhood needs this. It's okay. We'll get through it. But yeah, I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a good thing for that area.
Yeah, and it's kind of like there's a natural give and take to all those things. It's not a bad thing that, people want different things. They have these discussions that can seem like arguments, but at the end of the day, everybody has valid points, or at least there are valid points in there, and then they get buried by a lot of stuff that's just anger and frustration and confusion and miscommunication. But at the end of the day, there are valid points on both sides, and I think that there's a balance, struck between those things, and it, eventually works itself out over time. Like I know people's biggest concern out there right now is parking, but I'm seeing some more regulations via the zoning code being put in place to ensure that there is more parking in future development sites. And so, again, it's a valid concern. It's I think it can get overemphasized to some degree, but again, there's a balance. And so there's these little ways in which I think the opposing sides balance out and everybody gets a little bit of what they want, not all of it.
So, all right, I know you're working multifamily, but answer me, if you can, possibly, why none of these sites parking decks?
Parking decks. I mean, I don't know anything about that business model, how much they generate. I guess it's not that hard to figure out. You can see what they pay per month on the parking.
Yeah. I just figured one of these developers would come in and make the neighborhood so happy. Here's 400 parking spots. Leave me alone.
What's funny about that is, like, I guarantee you that if someone proposed some giant parking deck in the middle of some nice area up there, like, that would not fly. People would hate that. Like, I don't want to look at that on this block. And so they'd have to put it somewhere that no one would mind it being there, but it would probably be too far away for anybody to, like, you know what I mean? So I think it's kind of just logistically, like, doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And also, like, the underlying zoning there right now doesn't allow for a parking deck on, like, all of the properties that we purchase, everything we purchase is by right zoning. So we only purchase parcels that are zoned for multifamily. So we're not coming into an area and saying, hey, like, I know this is zoned industrial or it's zoned office, or you want something else here, but we feel like doing multifamily. So we're going to, force it to be what we want. We're only purchasing properties that have the zoning that says, we want multifamily here. So of course that doesn't guarantee that we don't get any pushback on projects, but we are trying to lean into the code and the way the zoning districts are laid out.
Yeah, I've sat in, I will say one of the cool things about COVID was all those zoning meetings became Zoom available. So I sat in on quite a few of them where before, like, I never even attended one of them. But yeah, they get pretty interesting. It's pretty fun to sit in on those. If anybody ever has an opportunity, I suggest if you're in the neighborhood and that's your neighborhood, have a voice. It's well worth it. Developers listen. Yeah. I've seen a couple of your guys' projects, maybe not yours specifically, but they have made changes due to what people have suggested. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, sometimes that's, that is the way that those things go, and that's what they're there for, is for people to voice, valid concerns that are sometimes related to safety or foot traffic or things that are going to impact the neighborhood that actually the developer should take into consideration. Things that are perfectly valid points. So that those valid points do come out in the midst of all of the other disagreements.
So I'm a new customer, potential new customer of yours. What are my minimum requirements just to get my foot in the door and start talking to you? Size, lot, money. What are the requirements that you look for?
Yeah. So on the brokerage side, we work with clients who are looking to buy and sell commercial property, multifamily in the city. So if you're a seller, you own a property and you're looking to sell, you would call us if you have something that you think would make sense as a development site, but you need an opinion on what it might be worth. We get a lot of conversations, calls from folks who own something that is, for example, a one-story retail auto shop, some type of use that they currently have. Maybe it's a small office building, a warehouse, but they know that the lot is large. They see the areas coming up. They know there might be good zoning there, but they're not quite sure how to value that and to get an understanding of, would this be worth more if I sold it to a developer versus if I kept it as is or tried to renovate it or wanted to sell it to another, someone that would use it the way it's currently being used. And so we have a lot of those conversations just to help folks figure out if it would make sense to sell their property as a development site. And then potentially bring a buyer to the site if we do have a client for it, of course, or if not, we'll put it on the market and recommend the pricing and the strategy to do so. For buyers, again, it's the same thing. We're mostly working with folks that are developers who are looking to do multifamily mixed use projects or to acquire the finished product as well. So a lot of our clients will buy, build, and hold to rent, but occasionally they might sell upon completion. And if there's a buyer that wants to purchase a turnkey building, we can make that connection. And also a lot of our clients are only holding these projects for a fixed period of time, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. But at some point, the building does get sold. And so we're sort of there to advise on all parts of the acquisition and disposition of the property, I guess, at the, purchase of the land, sometimes the purchase of or sale of a land at a second point where it gets entitled and gets resold to a different developer. Then after it gets completed and built and sold again. So we're sort of there at all of the points in the life cycle.
That's awesome. That's phenomenal out of it. I mean, then you're actually literally able to, hand it off. I don't know how else to say it. I know this is good. I did it before. This is my previous transaction. Trust me, you got a good one here.
Yeah, it's nice to be involved in sort of the life cycle of not only just a property, but also all of our clients. They don't just come in, build one thing, and disappear. For the most part, we're working with folks that are, serial developers. They're doing this as their business, whether it's their full-time or, they have another career, but they're doing a lot of these projects. And so we're working with them on multiple acquisitions, multiple sales. So we have a lot of repeat clientele, and yeah, it's nice to be involved in that full life cycle and understand what it took to get it from what it was to what it is now. We're not obviously involved in the construction. They have to figure that part out for themselves. But, it's interesting to be there to come in and advise on the valuation of the property at different points in the life cycle, on the negotiation of terms and how a sale might progress if it's raw land versus if it's entitled versus if you have tenants in the building. Like there's these different discussions that come up, and it's nice to kind of be involved in all those points.
That's really cool. You're like a financial real estate advisor. you just like you advise on the real estate of all aspects of it. Like it blows my mind how like the little details you're thinking of. I mean, just every little thing could add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference of a sale price, and you're thinking about it. Like you're putting it in. It's not just something that, oh yeah, I guess we could have done that. We may have gotten more if we did. Like you're actually going through it, and that's awesome out of it. And then again, you're seeing through the life cycle out of it, so all the problems or all the goods that have happened over the years out of that. So it's not like I don't know, it seems like a good property. No, this has been a solid property for 18 years. Trust me, you're good to go out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. There's so many small nuances that can really drive price up or down. And so it's good to really have a firm grasp on how all those things come together. For example, in a multifamily building, they're mostly going to be valued based on the cap rate, which is a factor of the net income of the building. And so it's good for us to understand, well, why would a building with a tax abatement potentially be worth more than one without? Well, because the net operating income is going to be higher, and so you might get a higher value. But even then to go further in those discussions and say, okay, well, how do tax abatements get evaluated by appraisers? Do they factor that into the report, or is that in? And it's things that I wouldn't know or think of if I wasn't in this industry, obviously. You'd be walking by a building from the outside and not really have any idea what the difference is between two identical buildings, but to get to understand how the actual income sheets and how all these factors play out at different points is really interesting. So we like to be able to have those conversations with our clients and inform and advise them and help them make better decisions along the way.
Any technology that you guys are using to make your life easier?
Oh, good question. I mean, we do use a good amount of technology in terms of like a CRM to organize all of our clients and, basic things like that. We use CoStar and MLS for data on properties in the market, but, I don't think we're not like overly tech heavy. We kind of also value just the knowledge that comes from talking to people and being involved in the market and, going to networking events and sort of crowdsourcing information. But certainly there's a lot of great information out there that makes life easier. I'm a big fan of just spreadsheets, Excel, and like just my email. Those are probably two things that are open on my desktop most often, and Atlas, the city website.
Oh God. So do you create your own Excel website? Do you create your own Excel spreadsheets for these?
Yeah. As far as underwriting the deal, yeah. So the development side of our company has a certain way that they'll sort of underwrite and analyze deals, and I'll use their templates and pro formas. If I see a property that I think would be a fit, I'll plug that into their formula and see if it meets the criteria. But I do the same thing for other clients as well. And it's really, it's all very similar. We're just trying to figure out what's the NOI, what's the cap rate, what's the potential yield. And there's, only so many ways you can slice that stuff up on a spreadsheet. But I'll put them together in a simple form. If I have a client that just wants a really quick, like, hey, can you just tell me what you think about this? I'll give them, a quick little breakdown, or they'll send it. A lot of times my clients will have their own templates of how they underwrite deals, and they'll send it to me and say, okay, send us the deal. Can you run it through this pro forma so that I'm only looking at stuff that I know is going to meet, the metrics. And so that's helpful.
That's really helpful. You guys stay really organized for this, huh?
Good old Dropbox and Google Drive. That's and lots of note taking.
It's I think it's funny because the more people I talk to, the more I realize there's still a generation of pen and paper. We still do exist.
Yes.
As much as I love technology, this is I don't know. I could show you the like 7 different notes I got going on right now of like things to do, what day, and so forth. Like pen and paper, it just sits there. It's easy.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, I think about pen and paper, like I think we do get overly reliant on the computer for all aspects of our day and trying to keep track of everything. But I think that, I don't know if it's just because we grew up writing things, and I don't know how, if kids are kids even writing anything in books anymore? I don't know. But for me, like I remember things better if I wrote it down, because that's how I'm used to processing information. And so for me, taking notes in a meeting and writing everything down, there's probably like, I don't know what % chance, but much more likely that I'll remember it without even ever referring back to the notes, because it just gets cemented into my brain in a different way when I do the writing, versus if I take the notes on a computer, like I would need to find those notes again somewhere because I don't remember what I typed. It just doesn't sink in the same way.
I'm exactly the same way. I could sit through something, as you say, note take it, recall it, not a problem. But yeah, if I try and type it or just listen to it or try and like, even oddly taking notes on my phone doesn't, like, it's not the same hand motion. I don't know. Like, I'm with you. I don't know what's going on, but to answer your question, I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and no, they don't like write anything anymore.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Really? No, I feel like that's kind of a shame. Like, I think even if it's not necessary and there's like plenty of technology to replace a lot of what we had to do, I still think there's something very like therapeutic about it. Even if they just do like an art class or something, I still think it's valuable, even if maybe you don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, the scary part to me, and I know this is off tangent a little bit, but like they'll come home and my kid's like designing a shoe on an iPad with like colors and everything else. I'm like, how did you do that? He's like, oh, it's just like this little program, and you just do this, stencil that, and it comes out.
I know.
So like they can't write, but they can design a shoe on an iPad.
They can design a shoe, yeah. But even, I mean, when I was in college, before I switched careers a million times, at one point I was an art student and a graphic design major. And graphic design obviously is going to involve a lot of computer, your Photoshop, InDesign, you're using all this software. But the instructors that I had always were insistent that you still design everything out manually at first before you got into the computer, like for any new design. Because if you just go right to the computer, you kind of lose some of the discovery of what you're trying to accomplish. And you don't make it in the computer later. I feel like I sound so like I don't know anything about technology. But
yeah, well, I caught myself a couple times today already being, well, back in my time. I'm 38. I shouldn't be saying back in my day. That's just not part of what it should be doing. But no, this has been awesome. I mean, the amount of information and the amount of analytics that you've got to be doing on a daily basis, hourly basis, really, is just incredible to me. It's good for you to be able to break it down. Good for you to be able to stay organized. As you say, you've got your templates, your clients' templates, marrying the two out of them, easiness, hardness, who wants this, and staying on top of it. That's awesome. It's such a really cool job for you. How can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so probably email is the best. My email is samantha@select-ca.com. Select and then -ca for Select Commercial Advisors. I'm also on LinkedIn. That's a pretty good way to reach me. I'll have folks reach out via direct message on LinkedIn, and I'll post a lot of the deals that we're working on there. So that's a good way to kind of stay in touch with anything that we have on the market and any new opportunities that we have. I'm always posting on LinkedIn.
So after analyzing hundreds and hundreds of different deals throughout the day, how do you decompress at the end of the day?
Oh, man. I wish I had a better answer for that. But I mean, there's a few things I like. I do go to the gym and work out a lot. That's been a big part of my life, and why I was in clinical research initially was I was interested in health. And for a while, that was, a big part of my life was getting involved in doing competitions and different things in the fitness world. And so that's still definitely a big part of how I decompress and de-stress. And then I also finally gotten back into reading. It's really nice to get lost in a good book. That really helps de-stress. I think it had been too long, and so I'm finding that again. And then, just like wandering around the city. Philadelphia is a beautiful city. You can just kind of get lost walking around and finding new places to go, coffee shops, restaurants, bars. There's so much to do. You can definitely, distract yourself for a good amount of time just wandering around.
I think that's the best answer I've had to that question so far. I mean, everybody says like reading or meditation or stuff like that, but just getting lost in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you so can. I mean, just any district you want to, you can spend some time down there. And I just say, find a coffee shop, find something, just kind of go to, pop your head in, spend $5 and walk out. So that's awesome. That's an awesome answer out of that. When you are reading, what are you reading recently? Anything like, is it within like taxes, real estate, or is it complete pleasure? What do you got there going on there?
Well, for a while, I was mostly reading like real estate books, and that's what I realized I needed to switch it up a little bit and can't just only read books about real estate and business. But there's some good ones out there. I was reading The One Thing, Gary Keller's book, and that's a good one for just general business. And then I just finished a book called The Push, which is a fiction novel, really interesting, just completely nothing to do with real estate or business. A story about mothers and daughters, and just got lost in that for a little while. So that was pretty fun.
I like those. I used to do the same thing. Everything I read was somehow real estate taxes. And it got overloaded. So yeah, now I'm on like murder mysteries, Born Identities, and all that kind of fun stuff. Where you're like, it could be a TV show, but each chapter is just a new page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can honestly get lost in it. I think I read the whole book in like one night. I couldn't even put it down.
That's awesome. I got to look that one up. The Push. All right, I got that.
I forgot that things that aren't real estate are fun too.
Yeah, it's so nice when you can just like, I don't want to say decompress again, but like, I mean, just literally compartmentalize everything that's gone in and just relax.
Yeah,
and it has nothing to do with TV. Your brain's still kind of working, but it's not really overly working because you're just reading, you're sitting in a quiet place. There's not a ton of stimulation going on.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing. I think we're overstimulated with technology these days. And I think it's good to find something that you have to focus on so that you're not just constantly like switching, like scrolling your phone. You're just constantly you're getting too much stimulus. And I think it creates a lot of anxiety and stress because you're just like taking in too much. I think it's really good. Like reading a book, you have to stay on the storyline. You have to really like focus on what you're reading so you can comprehend it. Or, I mean, not everybody, if you don't like reading, there's other stuff too. I started doing Sudoku again.
Yes.
That's really fun too. And it doesn't have to, it doesn't get you anywhere or accomplish anything, but it really, I think it's completely healthy for the brain to just like stop having so much stimulus.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I used to do Sudoku on the tablet. And then I really got annoyed because I was just finding myself getting lost all of a sudden. Notification came in, Yeah. So I went back I bought a book. I have a book.
I'm doing it on a book with like a pen, actually. I'm writing the little notes in. I don't even know how you would do it on a computer because like, how do you put your notes in the thing? Yeah.
There was a little tab that you could pull up a note thing and take but
I never played it on the phone.
Don't do it. I'm pretty sure we read the same article because I've been reading the same thing about technology and just we are overstimulating our brains and we're never giving time to shut down, relax, let the brain actually like restart itself and clean itself out. So yeah, that's a big one to me. I'm really bad, as you saw, with email. Email to me is one of those lost kind of communications. It's something that I check every once in a while. But I get too deep into it if I go into my email. Like I need to literally block an hour because I know I can't just go 1 to 2 emails. It's gonna go down and down and down. So I've actually like silenced my email notifications and I only check them in the morning and in the evening, even if I remember.
Yeah, I think that's really smart to do. Yeah, turning off as many notifications on your phone as you can is, I think, another really healthy habit. And yeah, I like the idea of checking because I'm definitely one that will sit there in front of my computer with my email open all day. And anytime I see the little counter go up, I'm like checking. And I think those things just cause more anxiety than they're worth. You're not actually, you think you're staying on top of stuff and you're being proactive and responsive, but I think a lot of times it just ends up creating more chaos and.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, then you open up a new tab and you start a new task, and then you never go back to it, and then oh God, I can go on and on with my ADHD. But yeah, any advice you got for these developers, either new or experienced?
I mean, honestly, the stuff we're talking about right now about staying focused, I was going to bring that back, and I guess that's a good a good segue is that I think it's good to have that type of focus in real estate also. Like in development, there's so much information out there. It's so easy to get distracted by the shiny objects. You know, you're watching somebody make a bunch of money over here, somebody else do an amazing deal over there, and you're like, oh, I must drop everything I'm doing. I must stop doing single family and start doing this. I'm going to stop doing this and start doing industrial, self-storage, like following the trends and getting distracted by those shiny objects. That's like, I think that's a result of some of this, overstimulated, mindset that we have. I think it's good to just take one thing, focus and stick to it, and then get really, really good at it. And you'll find the little subtle like arbitrage and nuances of how to make money within what you're doing. Even if 10 other people failed at it, it doesn't mean it's not doable. It's just that, maybe they're not focusing, they're getting too distracted. So yeah, I think that's my advice. Pick one neighborhood, pick one type of real estate, just do construction, just do renovation, like whatever you're going to do, just focus on, there's enough to kind of get your head around when even just within one very narrow lane. So
yep. There's a quote out there that I always misquote, and there's a million ways to make money within real estate, but the people who end up losing the most are the ones who can't stay in their own lane.
Yeah.
You said it. If you don't, and you start deviating, you start doing things that you're not good at, you're not going to know all those little nuances, and you're not going to know that, hey, maybe I needed an architect for this, and that's $3,500 I didn't budget for. Or maybe I need to dig out this basement, and holy shit, I've never dug out a basement before. That's 10 grand right there just to dig it out. I only had a $15,000 budget for the whole reno.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's to me, we found our little niche, single family, duplexes. We allow dogs, we allow pets. We like the small little places. We found what works for us. I look at people and they make a ton of money Airbnb and college rentals. Not mine.
Yep.
I want to do it. I want to do it so bad, but I know if I do it, I'm not going to be the expert. So I got to bring in a partner. If I'm bringing in a partner, why am I doing it at that point?
Yeah, I think it's good to be like mindful of where your information sources come from too, because when you hear people out there talking about how much money they're making, either they're like the one that made a ton of money and everybody else didn't, or like they made a bunch of money once and now they're just, their whole career is like selling other people horses on how they make money one time. It's like, is it repeatable? Like, can anybody else make money doing this? And that's, yeah. And that's not to say that I think people shouldn't try new things or share, information and trade ideas. But I think it's just easy to get distracted. So
Yep. I mean, that's what this podcast is. It's sharing ideas. It's helping people be able to find people within their lanes at the same time.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to jump around. But yet again, as you say, making those connections. So hey, listen, I've now done 5,500 of these things. I'm ready to kind of deviate. Now I want to take on a partner. Now I want to learn so I can deviate and start doing other things. That's a smart decision versus just, ooh, money over there, I'm in.
Exactly. Yep. 100%.
So I love that advice for the investors. Anything else out there that you want to make sure that you can tell these investors as a broad base? Hey, listen up.
The only other thing that comes to mind is like, I think it's good to think both long-term and short-term. And by that, I mean, understand what information means in both senses and don't make decisions with one thinking you're going the other way. For example, like we're in a very strange market right now where we're seeing interest rates up, we're seeing transaction volume go down, we're seeing some values dip down a little bit because of all the other factors. So, but these are short-term conditions. We don't know that this will last. And so making decisions out of like a temporary market conditions when your intention is to stay in a market long-term doesn't make sense, but also by that same token, you might look at an area and say, oh my gosh, I think there's so much growth potential here, right? I'm thinking long-term, but if the deal doesn't make sense in the upfront, you're not going to make it to the long-term. So I think it's really, really good to just be aware of how you're analyzing both of those things and make sure that you're making decisions the right way, not the opposite. I just see people make decisions the opposite too much.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you mention you would help your clients to look at both of those things at the same time?
I do. Yes, I help them look at both of those things.
I like that. I like how you did that. That's smart. And again, that goes back to your eye of being able to see those little things. Is it worth putting tenants in here to be able to sell it at a higher cap rate? or is it better to be able to sell vacant so that somebody can bring it in? And you being able to analyze the market, seeing the market daily, weekly, monthly, hourly, is so cool, because that's what's helping you make those decisions. And that's what's helping you advise your clients. And clearly you're giving good advice and they're doing really well. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. We like to learn
that. Any partners within the company or people you'd like to shout out to?
Partners within the company. I mean, we're still pretty small team. It's just a handful of agents and some sales assistants on my side, and then on the construction development side, it's a team of folks that are actually out at the projects every day, making them happen and building things, and then some people in the office making all of that happen.
That's not a little team; that's a big team.
It feels small in the grand scheme of things, but I like it. So I mean, shout out to our whole team. Every single one of them does just a phenomenal job at what they do, and I'm always constantly we're all impressed that we can accomplish what we do with a relatively small team. Meaning, more kudos to them for how much they can all do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you said you're a little about a year development, so my next question doesn't really go into what were you doing differently last year to this year, but how have you been able to make that leap from last year to this year with such confidence, I guess is my question.
Still working on that. I mean, it's still challenging. I don't know if we're quite there, but I think that one of the biggest things I did was try to lean on other folks. Again, this is a Philadelphia real estate's a small world, and it's really good to just lean on other folks that are in your industry and talk to people, network, get out there and listen to what other people are. Everyone's going through the same struggles. It's not a solo game. So just talking to people constantly has helped me a lot. Brainstorm, figure out how to get through. What are you doing? What's working? What's not working? And then I also took a lot of this time to try to build out more systems. So while transaction volume has been down, and so it hasn't been as busy as far as having to manage all these transactions, it's a good opportunity for us to then look more deeply at the back end of what we do up front. What are we doing to find new opportunities? How are we looking at deals? What data sources do we have? And who do we have on our team? And can we grow our team? And so we're doing a lot of this kind of foundational work on the back end in preparation for when we know the market will turn back around and get busy again. So it's been a good opportunity to kind of get some stuff organized.
I love that. I love when I hear business owners sit there and say, we are taking the opportunity to look internally right now, because so many people do not do it. And again, you're only about a year in, and that's a perfect time to be looking back and saying, hey, where did we make mistakes? How can we learn from them? Or what went really well, and how do we make a process around this?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Looking back at your successes, your wins, what did work, what didn't, doing like an 80-20 on things constantly. It's a good practice for sure. So
that's a really good practice. Good for you. We try and do that with my real estate career. We do it every 3 years. We look back onto it. Was it worth it? Do we go back into a W-2? Not, so forth. And yeah, it's something I feel like, again, every business needs. It doesn't matter how big, how small. You need to take that time and internally look at it. So that's awesome advice. I like you. You got a great little mind that I don't know how you keep it all in there, to be honest with you, because you're so calm, cool, and collective out of it. And yet there's like all this information just bouncing around in there that I just can't get it all out of there.
You're just catching me on a good day and not always calm.
Well, we'll have to do another one so I can get you on a bad day. We can get the two personalities out of there. But no, Samantha, this has been fantastic. I know we're working right around an hour out of it, so I don't want it to keep you too much longer. But I really do appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Absolutely. No, it's great to be on and chat with you again, Paul. I appreciate it. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah. So any last little bits you want to throw out to the universe before I let you go?
Check out Atomic Real Estate Podcast, and it's a great show. I've been watching. I've gone back and watched their interviews that you've done. So yeah, that's my parting words. Check out everything else Paul's done.
Oh, awesome! Thanks. So hopefully I can build myself big enough where I can actually get into one of these nice developments and actually feel that confidence in my world. But right now I'm still working on kitchens and bathrooms, and that's about it.
Yes. I love kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah, the grandmom houses. I love this. One day I'll be calling and knocking on your door, though, because that is a goal of mine, is to develop one. I want to develop one from land all the way up.
Nice.
And then that's my goal.
Awesome.
But unfortunately, that is the end of this episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show. There will be more actionable, atom-sized bits of advice that will be free for the taking in our next episode, so be sure to tune in next time. Thank you again to our listeners, and of course to Samantha. Thank you for being so generous with your time and honestly all of this insight. And talking to you has been 100% my pleasure out of it. This has been a Direct Subs production. Check them out at directsubs.com. I look forward to hearing from all of you in our comments, and please remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe wherever you choose to listen to the Atomic Real Estate Show. Let's be 1% better.
If you enjoyed our episode, please consider supporting the show by rating and reviewing the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Atomic Real Estate Show to find out when new shows drop and to participate in our community Q&As. The Atomic Real Estate Show was brought to you by Direct Subs. Direct Subs is the #1 place for real estate investors to connect with local contractors for their flips, rentals, renovations, and new construction projects.